You keep losing negotiations, arguments, and entire relationships to people who simply wanted it less. And that differential, that tiny gap between how much you cared and how little they did, that was the only weapon they needed. Not intelligence. Not charm. Not resources. They just cared less. And because they cared less, they moved differently. They spoke differently. They waited. You didn't. You reacted first because you were afraid of losing. They let you lose yourself. And every single time, you walked away confused, replaying the conversation, wondering what you could have said differently, while they had already forgotten about you. That is not a coincidence. That is a pattern. And it is taking everything from you, your leverage, your dignity, your peace of mind, and your power. Machiavelli understood something 500 years ago that you still have not internalized. The person who needs the outcome the least controls the outcome. Full stop. Caring is not a virtue in the game of power. Caring is a liability. It is the handle that others grab onto to steer you. The more you care, the more handles you expose. And people will grab every single one. They do this instinctively. They don't need to study power dynamics to sense that your desperation gives them leverage. They feel it in the way you talk too fast, in the way you text back immediately, in the way you over-explain when someone questions you, in the way you chase closure from people who have already emotionally left. They see all of it. And they use it. You have been handing people the blueprint to your own manipulation your entire life, and you didn't even notice it. So here is the thesis, and I want you to hold on to it for the next 30 minutes because everything flows from this single idea. The person who cares least controls everything. Not the smartest person. Not the wealthiest person. Not the most talented person. The person who can sit with discomfort without flinching. The person who can want something without needing it. The person who can walk away from the table and mean it. That person controls every room they walk into. And you can become that person. Not by pretending. Not by performing indifference. But by building the real thing, from the inside out, until it is unbreakable. Here are 7 dark principles of controlled indifference. Master them, and you will never lose to someone who cared less again. Number 1. Absence creates desire. Presence kills it. This is the first law of power in human attraction, and almost nobody understands it because it feels backwards. You believe that being present, being available, being consistent, that these things build connection. They do. But they also build complacency. They build familiarity. And familiarity is the quiet assassin of desire. When you are always there, you become background noise. You become the furniture. People stop seeing you because they don't have to. You are not going anywhere. They know it. You know it. And that knowing is what strips you of power. Think about the last time someone you were interested in became fully available to you. The moment they started texting back instantly, agreeing with everything you said, rearranging their schedule for you, what happened? You lost interest. Not because they did something wrong. Not because they weren't good enough. But because there was no tension. No chase. No gap for your imagination to fill. The space between two people is where desire lives. Eliminate the space and you eliminate the desire. This is not a flaw in human psychology. It is a feature. People value what they must work for. They devalue what is freely given. And this applies to everything, not just romantic relationships. Your boss does not respect the employee who is always available, always eager, always saying yes. Your friends do not value the person who never pushes back, never has a conflict, never creates friction. Your clients do not respect the vendor who responds in 30 seconds at midnight. They respect the one who has boundaries, who has other clients, who makes them feel like they are competing for attention. The moment you become scarce, you become valuable. This is not manipulation. This is physics. The moment you withdraw strategically, the other person has to fill the gap. And what they fill it with is their own imagination, their own anxiety, their own desire. They start thinking about you when you are not there. They start wondering what you are doing. They start creating narratives about why you pulled back. And every one of those narratives makes you more powerful, more mysterious, more desirable. You stop being a person they can take for granted and you become a question they cannot answer. And unanswered questions are the most powerful force in human psychology. They occupy the mind. They drive behavior. They create obsession. So withdraw. Not permanently. Not cruelly. Strategically. Build connection, then step back. Be warm, then be distant. Be present, then disappear for a while. Let them feel the difference between having you and not having you. Let them feel the weight of your absence. Because your absence will do more for your position than your presence ever has. Number 2. Intermittent reinforcement is the most powerful psychological weapon on earth, and most people have it used on them without ever knowing. Here is how it works. If someone is consistently kind to you, you adapt. It becomes normal. You stop appreciating it. If someone is consistently cold, you leave. You walk away because the cost is too high. But if someone alternates, warm then cold, present then absent, loving then distant, you cannot adapt. You cannot leave because the warmth keeps you hoping. You cannot relax because the coldness keeps you anxious. You are trapped in a state of perpetual uncertainty. And that uncertainty is addictive. This is what behavioral psychologists discovered with slot machines. The machine does not pay out every time. It does not never pay out. It pays out just often enough, at just unpredictable enough intervals, that the brain cannot stop pulling the lever. The brain becomes obsessed with the possibility of the reward, not the reward itself. And this same mechanism operates in every human relationship. The person who is always nice is forgotten. The person who is always mean is avoided. The person who is unpredictably both is obsessed over. Now I am not telling you to be cruel. I am telling you to understand the mechanism so that you can use it and so that you can recognize when it is being used on you. Because it is being used on you. Right now. Someone in your life is running this pattern on you, and you are confusing the anxiety they create with love. You are confusing the emotional roller coaster with passion. You are confusing the fact that you cannot stop thinking about them with the idea that they are special. They are not special. They are just intermittent. And your brain is just a slot machine pulling the lever hoping for the next payout. The strategic version of this is simple. Do not give everything at once. Do not give nothing. Give enough to create connection, then pull back enough to create longing. Be the variable, not the constant. Constants are expected. Variables are watched. When you are watched, you have power. When you are expected, you are furniture. Most people give everything too fast because they are afraid that if they hold back, they will lose the person. But here is the dark truth. Holding back is what keeps the person. Giving everything is what loses them. The person who gives everything on day 1 has nothing left to give on day 10. The person who gives slowly, inconsistently, with strategic gaps, keeps the other person engaged for months, for years, for decades. Not because they are better. Because they are smarter. Because they understand that the human mind does not crave satisfaction. It craves the possibility of satisfaction. And possibility is infinite, while satisfaction is finite. Number 3. Attachment reads as desperation. Detachment reads as power. This is the principle that will change every negotiation, every argument, every difficult conversation you ever have. When you walk into a negotiation caring deeply about the outcome, the other person can feel it. They can see it in your body language, hear it in your voice, sense it in the way you frame your sentences. And the moment they detect that you need this deal, you have lost. Because a person who needs something will always accept less than a person who does not. The entire structure of negotiation is built on this asymmetry. The one who needs less gets more. Always. Think about how this plays out in your life. You go into a job interview desperate for the position. They offer you less than you are worth, and you take it because you need it. You go into a relationship afraid of being alone. They sense your fear and treat you accordingly, because they know you will not leave. You go into a business deal needing the money. They smell it on you and they renegotiate the terms at the last minute because they know you cannot walk away. Every time you care too much, you pay a tax. That tax is measured in dollars, in respect, in self-worth, in years of your life spent in situations that are beneath you. And you pay it willingly because you have been taught that caring is good, that passion is attractive, that wanting something badly is how you get it. That is a lie. Wanting something badly is how you lose it. The people who get the best outcomes in life are the ones who can genuinely take the deal or leave it. Not the ones who pretend they can walk away. The ones who actually can. The ones who have prepared their life so that no single outcome determines their survival or their happiness. That is what real detachment looks like. It is not apathy. It is not numbness. It is the ability to pursue something with full effort while remaining completely unattached to the result. You do your best. You make your case. You put everything on the table. And then you let go. You do not grip. You do not chase. You do not beg. You present your terms and you sit back and you let the silence do the work. Because silence is uncomfortable for people who care more than you do. And if they care more than you do, they will fill that silence with concessions. They will negotiate against themselves. They will give you things you did not even ask for, because your stillness makes them nervous and their nervousness makes them generous. This is not theory. This is how every great negotiator operates. They prepare thoroughly and then they detach completely. They want the outcome but they do not need it. And that gap between wanting and needing is where all their power lives. Number 4. Make them come to you. Never go to them. This is one of the oldest principles of power, and it works because of a simple mechanical truth about human psychology. When you go to someone, you are on their terrain. You are in their frame. You are responding to their conditions, their timing, their environment. You are, by the very act of approaching, acknowledging that they have something you want. And that acknowledgement shifts the power dynamic before a single word is spoken. When they come to you, everything reverses. They are on your terrain. They are in your frame. They came to you because they need something, and now they are in your space asking for it. You set the terms. You choose the timing. You control the environment. And they have to adapt to you. This applies to everything. In business, the person who receives the call has more power than the person who makes it. In dating, the person who is pursued has more power than the person who pursues. In arguments, the person who is approached for reconciliation has more power than the person who initiates it. Every time you reach out first, every time you chase, every time you initiate, you are subtly communicating that you care more. And the other person absorbs that information like a sponge and adjusts their behavior accordingly. They become more demanding, more dismissive, more entitled. Not because they are cruel, but because your behavior has taught them that they can be. You trained them to treat you this way by always being the one who reaches out. So stop. Let the silence sit. Let the gap between communications grow. Let them wonder why you have not called, why you have not texted, why you have not chased. If the relationship matters to them, they will come to you. And if it does not matter to them, then you have your answer. And that answer, painful as it may be, is worth more than every chase you have ever undertaken. Because knowing where you stand is power. Living in ambiguity is weakness. The person who goes to the other person is always in a weaker position. The person who waits is always in a stronger one. Not because waiting is magical, but because waiting forces the other person to act. And when they act, they reveal their hand. They show you how much they care. They show you what they are willing to invest. They show you the truth that they have been hiding behind their silence. And that truth is the most valuable intelligence you can gather in any relationship. If you have to bait them, do it. Drop something interesting. Say something provocative. Create a reason for them to come to you. But never chase. Never pursue. Never be the one who needs the connection more. Because the one who needs it more always pays more for it. In money. In time. In dignity. In power. Number 5. Audit what you care about, because your cares are your chains. Right now, in this moment, you care about too many things. You care about what people think of you. You care about being understood. You care about being liked. You care about fairness. You care about being right. You care about outcomes you cannot control. You care about people who do not care about you. You care about opinions that will be forgotten in a week. And every one of those cares is a chain around your ankle. Every one of those cares is a lever that someone can pull to move you. If they know you care about being liked, they will threaten to dislike you. If they know you care about fairness, they will accuse you of being unfair. If they know you care about being right, they will challenge you on trivial points until you are exhausted from defending yourself. Your cares are not just emotional investments. They are strategic vulnerabilities. And the people who understand power can read them like a map. So you need to audit them. Sit down, alone, with no distractions, and write down everything you care about. Every outcome. Every opinion. Every relationship. Every expectation. And then go through that list and ask yourself one question for each item. Does caring about this give me power, or does it take my power away? Be brutal. Be honest. Do not rationalize. If caring about your coworker's opinion of you gives you anxiety and changes your behavior, it is taking your power away. If caring about a specific outcome in a negotiation makes you accept worse terms, it is taking your power away. If caring about whether someone texts you back ruins your entire evening, it is taking your power away. Once you identify the cares that disempower you, you do not eliminate them overnight. That is not how the mind works. You reduce them. You starve them. You stop feeding them with your attention, your rumination, your endless mental rehearsal of scenarios that have not happened. You systematically reduce your visible investment in outcomes. You stop talking about how much you want something. You stop showing how disappointed you are when things do not go your way. You stop performing your emotions for an audience that does not deserve the show. You make your investment invisible. And when your investment is invisible, people cannot use it against you. They cannot leverage what they cannot see. They cannot manipulate what you do not display. They are left guessing about what matters to you, and when they are guessing, they are uncertain, and when they are uncertain, they are cautious, and when they are cautious, you are in control. This is not suppression. Suppression is when you feel something intensely and hide it. That is exhausting and ultimately unsustainable. What I am describing is reduction. Actually caring less. Actually investing less of your emotional energy in outcomes you cannot control. Actually accepting that some things will not go your way and that this is not a catastrophe but simply a data point. The Stoics understood this. Marcus Aurelius wrote about it every morning. He reminded himself that the opinions of others, the outcomes of events, the behavior of people around him, none of these were under his control. And what is not under your control is not worth your emotional investment. Not because it does not matter, but because investing in it makes you weaker without making the outcome more likely. You can care about something and still not invest emotionally in how it turns out. That is the sweet spot. That is where power lives. Number 6. Self-sufficiency is the ultimate power move, and it is not negotiable. Here is the uncomfortable truth. If you need other people for your happiness, they control your happiness. If you need a relationship to feel complete, your partner controls your emotional state. If you need a job to feel valuable, your employer controls your self-worth. If you need social approval to feel okay, the crowd controls your mood. Every need you have is a leash. Every dependency is a point of leverage. And the people who understand power are always looking for those points of leverage. They are always asking, what does this person need? What are they afraid of losing? What can I take away that would hurt them? And if you have needs, they will find them. The only defense against this is radical self-sufficiency. I am not talking about isolation. I am not talking about becoming a hermit who trusts no one and needs no one. I am talking about building an internal foundation so solid that no external person or circumstance can destabilize you. You enjoy people but you do not need them. You pursue success but you do not depend on it for your identity. You want connection but you can thrive in solitude. This is what real power looks like. It looks like a person who is complete on their own and who chooses to include others, not out of necessity but out of preference. And people can feel the difference. When you need someone, they feel it, and it makes them respect you less. When you choose someone from a place of fullness, they feel that too, and it makes them respect you more. Because a person who does not need you is a person who can leave at any time. And a person who can leave at any time is a person you must treat well if you want them to stay. This is the paradox of human relationships. The less you need people, the better they treat you. The more you need people, the worse they treat you. It is backwards from everything you were taught. You were taught that showing need demonstrates vulnerability and that vulnerability builds connection. Sometimes it does. But more often, it builds contempt. Because need is not vulnerability. Need is pressure. Need is a demand that the other person fulfill something in you that you cannot fulfill yourself. And no one wants that job. No one wants to be responsible for your emotional completion. It is too heavy a burden, and eventually, they will set it down. And when they do, you will feel abandoned. But you were not abandoned. You were never held. You were just being propped up, and the prop was removed. Build your own foundation. Make yourself emotionally self-sufficient. Learn to enjoy your own company. Learn to find meaning in your own pursuits. Learn to regulate your own nervous system without needing another person to do it for you. This is not selfish. This is the most generous thing you can do for everyone in your life, because it means they never have to carry the weight of your needs. They get the best version of you, the version that chooses them freely, not the version that clings to them out of desperation. Number 7. The illusion of not caring is fragile. Genuine indifference is unbreakable. Here is where most people fail at this. They learn these principles, they understand them intellectually, and then they try to perform them. They pretend not to care. They act indifferent. They force themselves not to text back, not to react, not to show emotion. And for a while, it works. The other person responds. The dynamic shifts. Power changes hands. But it does not last. Because the illusion of indifference is a performance, and performances require energy. You are spending enormous mental energy pretending not to care while actually caring intensely. And eventually, the mask slips. You crack. You send the text you swore you would not send. You make the call you promised yourself you would not make. You react to the provocation you told yourself you would ignore. And the moment you crack, everything collapses. Because now the other person knows it was an act. They know you were pretending. And that knowledge gives them more power than they had before, because now they know two things. They know you care, and they know you will try to hide it. And that means every future display of indifference will be suspect. You have destroyed your own credibility. The illusion of not caring is a house of cards. One breath and it falls. Genuine indifference is something else entirely. It is not a performance. It is a structural reality. It is what happens when you have actually done the internal work to reduce your investment in outcomes. When you have actually built self-sufficiency. When you have actually accepted that you cannot control other people and have stopped trying. When you have actually grieved the losses you were pretending not to feel. When you have actually sat with the discomfort of not getting what you want and discovered that you survived it. That survival is what builds real indifference. Not the idea that you do not care, but the evidence that you can survive not caring. Every time you want something and do not get it and do not collapse, you build evidence that you are okay without it. Every time someone rejects you and you continue to exist, to eat, to sleep, to function, you build evidence that rejection is not fatal. Every time an outcome you feared comes to pass and the world does not end, you build evidence that your fears were exaggerated. And this evidence compounds. Over time, you stop needing to pretend indifference because you have actually become indifferent. Not to life. Not to meaning. Not to the people who matter. But to the outcomes you cannot control and the opinions you cannot change and the approval you cannot earn. That is genuine indifference. And it is unbreakable because it is not built on suppression. It is built on truth. The truth that you have survived everything you were afraid of. The truth that you are stronger than the things you want. The truth that your worth is not determined by whether someone else recognizes it. This is the deepest layer of the principle. The person who cares least controls everything, but only when the caring less is real. Faked indifference is just delayed caring. It always comes due. Built indifference is permanent. It is structural. It becomes who you are, not what you do. And when it becomes who you are, you stop playing the game of power because you have become power itself. People come to you because they sense you do not need them. Opportunities come to you because you are not desperate for them. Respect comes to you because you do not chase it. Everything you spent your life pursuing starts pursuing you, because you have become the thing that everyone wants but few people are. A person who is complete. A person who is unmoved. A person who is untouchable. So let me bring you back to where we started. You keep losing to people who simply wanted it less. That differential was the only weapon they needed. And now you understand why. It was never about intelligence. It was never about resources. It was never about charm or talent or luck. It was always about attachment. It was always about who needed the outcome more and who needed it less. And the person who needed it less won. Every time. Without exception. Because the person who needs it less can walk away. And the person who can walk away controls everyone who cannot. That is the ruthless art Machiavelli perfected. The cold calculus of power. The understanding that caring is not a virtue but a vulnerability. That attachment is not a strength but a liability. That the person who sits still while everyone else scrambles is the person who ends up holding everything. And now this understanding is yours. Not as information. Not as a theory you read somewhere. As a lived principle you can begin applying today. Right now. Not tomorrow. Not when you are ready. Not when the situation is perfect. Right now, in the next conversation you have, in the next text you receive, in the next negotiation you enter. Care less. Not as an act. As a practice. Reduce your investment. Pull back your energy. Let the silence do the work it was designed to do. Let them come to you. Let them wonder. Let them fill the gap with their own anxiety while you sit in your stillness and watch. And if you are sitting there right now thinking that this sounds cold, that this sounds heartless, that this sounds like the opposite of everything you believe about love and connection and human warmth, I want you to hear something. The people who love the most deeply, the people who give the most authentically, the people whose relationships actually last, they are not the ones who care the most. They are the ones who have built themselves so completely that their caring comes from fullness, not from emptiness. They care from a position of strength, not from a position of need. And that is why their caring lasts. Because it is not dependent on the other person completing them. They are already complete. Their caring is a gift, not a demand. And gifts are powerful. Demands are exhausting. So build yourself. Become the person who does not need the outcome. Become the person who can sit at the table and mean it when they say they can walk away. Become the person whose silence makes other people nervous and whose stillness makes other people move. Become dangerously indifferent. Not to life. Not to meaning. Not to the things that actually matter. But to the outcomes you cannot control, the approval you cannot earn, and the people who are not willing to meet you where you stand. That is the path. That is the practice. That is the ruthless art Machiavelli perfected, and now it is yours. Type the words "I am untouchable" in the comments right now. Not because the words are magic. But because saying them out loud, even in writing, is the first act of becoming them. You are untouchable. Act like it. Starting now.